Hello, welcome to Walks with Amanda. Today I'm going to be talking about discipline. And when I say discipline, I'm talking about like teaching our children, what's right and what's wrong, and teaching them to listen to us as parents, and, just teaching them how to interact with other people in life and to get, self-control in their own life, and just teaching them basic, things like that, just to help them make it through life. And so I'll give you a background of my story, of course. When I was raising my son, who's now 10, almost 11, when I was raising him when he was little, I really didn't know anything. I had no experience with babies, little kids, and I especially had no experience, teaching children anything, especially discipline. The way I was disciplined growing up was not, I got yelled at, screamed at, and there was no rules, and there was no, constant discipline. There was no training. There was no, teaching me how to have self-control and how to deal with things. And so basically my parents pretty much left me to myself. And so that's kind of where I came from. And so when I had my son, I didn't know what to do or how to do it, or what was even acceptable and what wasn't. And so when he was really young, I was not there a lot. I was working in school, just anywhere but home with my child. And I seriously regret that now, looking back. But thankfully, I was able to turn things around. And as he got older, and once I was married and able to stay home with him all the time, I obviously had a lot of issues to deal with once he was home and I was home with him. And especially with the whole, when he went to school, there was a lot of problems. And so I just had a lot on my plate, and I didn't know what to do. My husband was helpful. He told me, you need to set some rules, and you need to follow that and stick to it. And there has to be consequences, for when he doesn't listen. And so I tried a number of things, tried taking away his favorite toy, and, limiting his privileges with video games when he still played them, and, said, no, you're not going to this thing or event if you don't listen. And I tried all of those different kinds of, ways to control him and make him listen. And honestly, none of it worked. So I had a lot of that on my hands for basically his whole life. I mean, it wasn't until he was 9 years old that I finally learned what to actually do to get his, behavior and all of that under control. When he was little, he would hit me, and he would throw tantrums, and just run away from me in the store, and all the things we see today. So many parents don't know what to do, and they feel helpless, because I felt helpless with my son for a really long time. And so I'm just going to share what really changed everything and turned it all around for us was when I came across the book, How to Train Up a Child by Mike and Debbie Pearl. That book gets a lot of negative comments, and, people try to tear these people apart for the things that they write. And honestly, I don't know why so many people hate them, because their book is what changed everything for my family, and especially for my son. So, their book, yes, it does, they do suggest different ways to discipline, like, using a switch, or, for older children, spanking them with a belt. But their whole entire approach is not about that. Their approach is more about cultivating a true relationship with your child, so that once you have a solid, relationship with your kid, you won't even really have to use those drastic measures, because your child is more likely to listen to you when you have a real relationship with them. So after I read that book, I really, was like, okay. And I learned that the main thing I needed to do to start with, even though my son was already 9 years old, the first thing I had to do was to teach him to listen to me on the first time I said something, because I'm sure everybody has seen children that just do not listen. Their parents will say, they'll say, come over here, or we're leaving, and they'll have to say it like 50 times. And then the parent finally loses their cool and gets angry, and then the child listens. And so that's not healthy. And basically you're training your child to just not listen to you, because there's no consequences, and you don't train them to listen to you on the very first try. So the first thing that I did, when my son, I pulled him out of school, he was 9, and we were home together, was I explained to him and said, some things are going to change, and there's something really important that I want to teach you now that you're home. And I said, I want to teach you how to listen to me and obey me the first time I ask you to do something. And I told him, I'm never going to ask you to do anything that's wrong, or that's going to hurt you, or, hurt anyone else. The things I'm going to ask you to do are things that are necessary. And it's because mom's in charge and you're not. And so I really had to change my own perspective first and realize, okay, I am the parent here. I am in charge. My child does not make the decisions in my house or in my life. And so that's sort of like a main thing that I really wanted to share today on this walk, is that I have seen so many parents, like all around me, everywhere I go, they're giving their small children and, children this authority. Like, I see parents at the store saying, do you want to get in the stroller so mommy can push you? Like, why are you asking your toddler if they want to get in the stroller? If you want them in the stroller, you're the parent, you're in charge. Just put them in the stroller. They're not in charge. And so it's really a matter of your own perspective and your mindset of, all right, I'm in charge. I make the rules. And my child needs to listen to me, not the other way around. We don't listen to our children. We don't, let them make our life decisions or our daily decisions about what we're doing, where we're going, and all these things. So that's kind of like the first thing I wanted to share, is that if you're really serious about getting control of the situation with your kids, if they're kind of out of control, the first thing you need to do is really change your mindset and tell yourself, I'm in charge. I make the rules, and I'm not going to let my children be in charge. And so once I had that mindset, going for myself, I explained to my child, I really would like to teach you how to listen to me and how to obey me. And so what I did was I let him know, like, if you don't listen to me on the first time, there's going to be a consequence. And in my case, I decided that I was going to spank him if he didn't listen, because I had never done it before, had never tried it before. And it's what that book recommended to do if it comes down to it, and you really need to get your kids under control. And so when I say spank, I'm not talking about, parents being in a rage and just pounding their children in any way, any shape or form. I'm not about that. What I am about is cool, calm, under control discipline for your child. And so what I did was I used this big paddle that we had laying around, and it's just meant to sting. It's not meant to bruise, hurt, break anything. It's just meant to sting them, so that they associate the sting with, this is what happens when I don't listen. And so I began doing that with my son, and I'm not kidding, it only took about a week or so for him to start listening, you know, on that very first time. And, you know, for all different things. If I said, please hand me, you know, that soccer ball, you know, he did it. And it was the first time in my entire life with my child that he was listening, and it was amazing. And so that's how I know that it was the right thing for us, because I saw results immediately. And so, you know, I kept myself under control every time I needed to do this. And I explained to him every time, you know, you didn't listen on the first time, and I really want you to learn how to do that, because it's very important for me as your mom to make sure that you listen. And he got it. He understood. I mean, he was already 9, so it's not like he was a baby. So he got it. He understood very well. And so ever since then, I've rarely had to discipline in that sense, because not only did I do that, but at the same time, and this is what the book, you know, really focused on, was the fact that you have to build that relationship with your child. And so the audio before this one is all about how to connect with your child. And so, you know, at the same time that I was starting to implement these new changes in our home, I also started taking an interest in my son and really spending a lot of time with him and building that relationship with him. And so it kind of all went together once, you know, I started spending that quality time, and then, you know, starting with this discipline, it all went together so well, and things improved immediately. And so I really suggest that book to anyone who's, you know, really at their wit's end, who really needs some good advice and wisdom about how to train their child at any age, really. That's a really great book. And I know, like I said, it gets a lot of bad reviews and a lot of bad comments and a lot of hate towards, you know, the people that wrote it. But like I said, it worked wonders for me and my child. So I believe it could work wonders for you too, if you're interested. But so that was pretty much the main thing that I did, is just I spent that quality time and I explained to him, you need to listen on the first try. And so ever since that time, you know, we've been home together for a couple of years now. I've just seen him mature and really, really blossom. And, you know, I've taught him over and over, you know, your parents are in charge for a reason. You know, we are responsible for you, and that's why you need to listen to us and trust us, because we want what's best for you. And so if we tell you not to run in, you know, in the middle of the road, don't run in the middle of the road. If we tell you not to do this or that, it's because we love you and we care about you. And that's the main point of all discipline, is to show your child, I love you and I care about you, and that's why I'm doing this, because I want what's best for you. And so what happens when, and this was explained in the book, what happens when a child is not disciplined at all and when they're pretty much left to themselves, what happens is the child has, you know, all this guilt that gets built up, because even a child can tell when they're behaving or not. And so they know that they deserve punishment. And when they don't get punishment, they end up feeling really guilty, and they sort of develop this shame-based identity where, like, they want to be good, but they can't, and like nobody's guiding them or giving them any kind of discipline. And so they just grow up and live their life feeling guilty. And that happened to me, so I can testify to it. It's true. Like, I felt that way. And so, you know, it's just really important to make sure that we are teaching our kids like what's really important. And another big thing too that I focused on with my son is self-control. I taught him, you know, what self-control is, and explained to him, like, you know, if you can develop self-control as a child, it's going to make your life a lot easier when you grow up, because you'll be able to say no to things that are bad for you, and you'll be able to control your temper, and, you know, you'll be able to get a handle on a lot of behaviors that are really hard for a lot of people to overcome, especially once it becomes a habit and they grow up and that's just the way they are. You know, it's a lot harder to develop these new and better habits.